I love reviewing the Bible. I read it over and over and over. It's not only food for my soul, but it also gives me everything I need, really, of knowledge and wisdom and all that. And this is chapter 14. This is 14. This is a review of chapter 14 in Matthew. And basically, he's proving who Jesus was. And the big overall thing is what he was saying is he healed multitudes of people. After he withdrew, we'll go into the details a little bit, but he healed people. And then he also, if you remember in Matthew 14, he multiplied the loaves and the fishes and literally fed maybe 15, 20,000 up to maybe 25,000 people. 5,000 men, they, rounded it off there, but, and then with the women and children, there's mass people there. And then also, he showed that he had power over nature. This is the second time that he literally had power over the storm where it calmed down. And also, not only did he calm the storm down, he literally walked supernaturally over water, walked right on top of the water. He got wet because of the storm and all, but he walked right on water. And not only him, he calls Peter to do it. And then at the end of the whole thing, he heals again mass people. I'd love to know how many. I believe we're going to find that out when I go to heaven. I want to know details like this. Well, how many did you actually heal? And when the Bible talks about multitudes and masses, remember just then he mentioned 5,000. The writer mentioned 5,000 men. And so there were mass people who were, getting affected by Jesus, as is today. Jesus is still affecting people and saving people and healing people and doing miracles. And because of that, by the way, Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great, heard of Jesus. And that's how this starts out in chapter 14. Herod actually heard of this Jesus, and he thought that John the Baptist, who he had killed, if you remember the story, was raised from the dead. There was a superstitious feeling that he had there. He was wrong, but this is, and then in chapter 14, what Matthew does is he takes this, he said Herod heard of Jesus, and then he goes into, by the way, I haven't told you how John had died. And so that's where he goes into the story of John's death. And if you remember what happened, Herod had this, big birthday party, and Herodias, used to be Philip's wife, a different Philip than the Philip that was a ruler also. By the way, I think he was a really good ruler, by the way. That's the only guy in the Herod dynasty and the family that was any good. But Matthew tells of how John's death came about, where Herod Antipas really didn't want to kill him. In a way he did, but he feared him and he admired him and everything else. There's kind of mixed feelings there. It was kind of weird. But Herodias hated him, and so she plotted and got Salome, to this young girl to dance a really nasty dance. There's all sorts of lessons in this, remember. There's good dancing, and then there's not so good dancing, stuff that is not appropriate, And so, he wanted that girl, and so it was bad. And so what happened is he said, I'll give you up to half of my kingdom, if you remember. And so she went to the mom and said, what do I do? She said, get the head of John the Baptist. And that's what happened. And they beheaded him. He didn't really want to do it because he spoke an oath. He swore that he would do it. Then, he didn't want to be embarrassed among all his guests, because he would have just fallen, just said, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, you just said you would and all that. What type of man are you? Anyway, so it was a trick. It was a trick of the devil, actually, behind that. And then after that, what happened is, because of Jesus hearing that Herod heard of him, that's when he withdrew. And that's when he healed. But he withdrew, kind of pulled back from people, and crowds followed him, and he still healed them. So there's that. I told you about the 5,000, how he fed thousands of people. And then after that, he prayed. He went into a mountain to pray, and he came down, and he sent the disciples off real quick because there were some people there who were trying to get him to become king because he just fed all these people. Wow, what are the powerful, look at the power, what a powerful man that God is. He's a prophet, among us and all. So they were trying to make him king and to overthrow the Roman government who was over him, overthrow Herod Antipas and all the other Roman leaders. All right, so he prayed. He was really seeking the Lord about that, and he came out and he walked across water. The storm happened. It's a really bad storm. It happens quite a bit on that Sea of Galilee and Sea of Gennesaret. And so Jesus and Peter ended up walking on the water, which is pretty cool. And then they end up at the land of Gennesaret, and then he healed a bunch more. And there you go with the stories of Matthew chapter 14. And again, the overall overarching theme here is talking about Jesus. Like what a wonderful, wonderful person he is. And they starting to see a bit. Remember, the confession of the disciples, I think for the first time, was saying, Son of God. Nathaniel mentions it in John, which we'll get to. We'll discuss that later. But they were saying, this guy is something else. He's definitely seems to be a prophet of God and all. But I don't think at this point at all, they could not see that he, a son of God, meaning the divine one of God, like he's divine, like in nature God. Like, I'm a human being, and if I had a son, we're both human beings. Well, God's son means that he's really God. At least the nature of God, sort of in a sense, and this, I'm not saying this correctly, but same species. Like we have God life being with different forms of that being, and then we have human or angelic beings, and then the Bible says humans are made a little lower than the angels, so we have human beings. That's our species, sort of thing. And then and there's we're different forms, different makeups of humans, but we're all human. That's how Jesus is God, because he's in the form of God. The Bible says in Philippians chapter 2. And then you have animal life, different forms, and then you have plant life, and then I guess underneath that is bacteria, and then you get smaller and smaller, whatever, neutrons, protons, electrons. All right. Anyway. So there you go. I hope you're getting a lot out of this. I am getting a lot out of, sharing it with you. It's really rich stuff. And you come to know him. And read that chapter again. I would encourage you to do it. I love reading it. And it's very exciting. These are not fairy tales. It's actually happened too. So give your heart and life to Jesus. Okay? Bye.